afternoon, and welcome to the City of Cleveland's 2021 Black History Month celebration. With everything else that has been going on in the world, it is no doubt that this afternoon we've had our share of difficulties bringing this presentation to you. But hopefully, you are all hearing us loud and clear. You are watching. Each year, we gather to celebrate the accomplishments of African Americans in our community from the past, and also to pay tribute to those who are currently making strides in our community. This year, because of the many difficulties that we have experienced with COVID and the pandemic and social unrest, we have chosen individuals to honor who have made or are making a difference in our community to support our theme, which is um, strengthening Black families as they strive for equity and equality. I have shortened that, but I am a little tongue tied this day. But today we have a presentation for you. We will continue to bring you enlightening and engaging content throughout the month. And I hope that you will join us not each day, but weekly at least, here on WebEx as well as the City of Cleveland Facebook page. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Director Grady Stevenson of our Community Relations Board, who will take it from there.
Thank you, Shelley. Good afternoon. I am Grady Stevenson, the Executive Director of the City of Cleveland Community Relations Board. On behalf of Frank G. Jackson, our mayor, the 56th mayor of the City of Cleveland, Reverend Charles Lucas, our board chair, the Black History Committee, I welcome you to the opening of the City of Cleveland's 2021 Black History Month program. Each year, we gather to celebrate Cleveland's history and those creating history today. The difference this year is COVID-19, which prevented us from coming together. The honorees this year have made a difference in the lives of our residents during one of the most challenging periods we have experienced. We salute them for shining their light to aid others. Join us this month in celebrating Cleveland's own. It is my honor to introduce what we should have heard. But in our comments, we will have, you will see a welcome from our council president, President Kevin Kelly. So if you look in the comments, you'll see a welcome from him there.
Good afternoon. I am Cleveland City Council President Kevin Kelly, and on behalf of my 16 colleagues, Cleveland City Council would like to welcome you and thank you for participating in Black History Month 2021. And I personally am honored to be here to be able to welcome you to the kickoff of Black History Month 2021. Although this year is going to be a little bit different, we absolutely cannot take a year off in celebrating and recognizing the accomplishments of our African American community. It is so important that we recognize that African American history is American history, that African American history is Cleveland history. If we look back at the accomplishments that have been made by our African American community in engineering, in business, in politics, in education, in music, in art, this community would be so lacking in richness if we did not have those contributions. I encourage everyone who hears this message today to attend one of the many virtual or socially distanced education or celebratory events. Many events are taking place throughout the community, and whether it's going to the Western Reserve Historical Society, the Cleveland Museum of Art, the Rock Hall, Karamu House, I encourage you to please take part in this year's Black History Month. And if you do nothing else, take some time and go to 93rd Street and visit the Black Lives Matter mural. It is powerful, it is moving, and it's representation of our community, and it's also a reminder that we have a long way to go. Together, we will get there. Together, we will work towards dismantling systemic racism, and we will be building a greater Cleveland together. Thank you again for welcoming me. Thank you for allowing me to address Black History Month 2021. Looking forward to a great month, and if I don't see you before at one of these events, I will see you at the end as we close Black History Month later this month. Thanks so much.
It is my indeed pleasure to talk about a great gentleman that I have had the pleasure of working with some, I guess, 9-10 years now. To introduce to you all a hero that I believe deserves to be saluted here in the city of Cleveland and around this country. Dr. Edward M. Barksdale, Jr., the Robert Isant Jr., medical professional surgeon and chief at Rainbow's Babies and Children's Hospital / University Hospitals and Case Western Reserve School of Medicine. An All-American athlete and honored graduate of Yale University in 1980. Dr. Barksdale received his medical degree from Harvard University in 1984. He completed his residency in general surgery at Massachusetts General Hospital in 1991, and fellowship training in pediatric surgery in Children's Hospital Medical Center in Cincinnati in 1994. He began his academic surgery career at the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh in 1994 through 2007, and was recruited by Rainbow's Babies and Children. What a great job they did. They chose a great man. And I can go on and on telling you about the accomplishments of this man, but I do want to say this. Dr. Barksdale is the president-elect of the American Pediatric Surgery Association. Now, I don't want to take up all his time because I want him to have time to present to us what he has brought to the table today. But I want to say this. Over the 9 or 10 so years that I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Barksdale and watching him from afar and seeing his dedication and commitment to this community and to saving lives and preventing violence and retaliation for violence in the city of Cleveland. Dr. Barksdale has taken this on, I believe, as a personal challenge and really dedicated his service to saving the lives of young people, young adults, and juveniles here in the city of Cleveland. He has helped us in our prevention work. He has helped us in our efforts to stop retaliation through the work that he has done at the hospital, along with city council and the administration. Dr. Barksdale has answered the call each and every time we've reached out to him. And I'm so proud that I can call him a friend, a man that I'm honored to sit at the table with each and every time we are called, one that I look up to as a great man who deserves to be honored. And I think kicking off our Black History celebration today, when we're talking about Shelley, strengthening Black families through the quest of equity and equality, I think there could have been no better choice to start this off than Edward Barksdale. So, sir, I welcome you to our Black History celebration. And now I'm going to turn it over to you to go as you please.
Director Stevenson, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. After that kind of introduction, I don't have any comments because I can only bring that person down. As I give my prepared remarks, I sure hope that my mother's smiling. My mother transitioned this past year, and I think that in many ways, although my parents were married for 63 years, we all endeavored to be our mother's child, and that our mother looked favorably on us. Mayor Jackson, in absentia, Council President Kelly, in absentia as well. Director Stevenson, committee chair, Ms. Shockley, members of the committee, I am so deeply honored and humbled to join you today to accept this recognition, to start the kickoff for Black History Month and the legacy of Black families in this remarkable and rich city of Cleveland. Most importantly, we're here today to strategize and then execute on our common goal to empower families in the realm of equality, equity, and inclusion in the American dream. I'm delighted to be here to honor those families with you, those who might be on Facebook, those who may see this recorded. I am delighted to be with you and for us to be with them. I must admit, during my preparation for my comments today, I kept hearing my mother's childhood admonitions and voice saying that I should not be taking this recognition. She said, remember, you are supposed to cut the grass. You are supposed to clean up your room. You are supposed to do the dirty dishes. You don't need no reward for that. So don't be looking at me for a pat on the back for what you are supposed to do. Remember, your service is the rent you pay for living here. And in many ways, honoring my mother and honoring you, that any of the things that Director Stevenson has said, those are just a portion of the rent that I owe Cleveland for the privilege of living here. I so wish my mother were alive. She would probably be saying, just shut up, boy, take the recognition and move along. They got things to do. This is lunchtime. They want to eat. You're going to give them indigestion. But I must say that her nearly 93 years of life left a remarkable legacy, particularly for me, a legacy of hope that I hope to carry on daily in my professional and personal life as a surgeon, as a community servant, but most importantly, as a husband and father. I know that she's looking down from heaven, and my father's probably telling her, just get back and do your angel work and let this boy do his thing. But the Barksdale Richardson family legacy of service to humanity runs deep. And in fact, my mother asked me that there would be only one song sung at her funeral. And I honored that. And that song was If I Could Help Somebody. And so that resonates with me, and it really resonates, I think, with your theme. I kind of smile. I keep looking at Ms. Shockley here. I realize she keeps things in order. You know, I got a letter. I didn't read the letter. I thought I was going to show up, and I didn't realize I had to give a talk. She sent me a note back saying, if you read the letter, like she told Mr. Stevenson earlier, if you read the letter, if you pay attention, then you'd know. So she reminds me of that strong maternal figure that I grew up with my entire life and keeping me on track. So in the minutes that I have together with you today, I'd like to talk about the theme of Black History Month, which is equality and equity. But I'd like to add a little spin to my end of that. That theme is, for me, is equality, equity, and justice. Because what we really want is justice. And I so regret I'm not able to show my PowerPoint slides because I have a beautiful cartoon that I think illustrates this and emphasizes what I hope to say today in the brief time that I have together with you. This has been an incredibly difficult year for us all. The coronavirus and the pandemic have unsurfaced great disparities in our country that we all know. And it has laid bare in Cleveland the level of systemic racism, yes, I said it, that impacts the entire city. And if you see systemic racism as a wall, depending on either side of the wall, we are all negatively affected. And so for me, this concept of justice means taking that wall down in whatever ways that we can. It's been said that the two most important days of your life are the day that you were born and the day that you realized what you were born to do. The day that I was born was in the summer of 1958, 4th of July weekend. My mother's water broke. She'd had a difficult pregnancy and an even more difficult delivery. I was a breech baby, and I'm often proud to say I was a breech baby. I would tell my sister I was born feet first so that I could hit the ground running. She said, no, you were born butt first. And that is why you are, you get it, a butthead. But I think that first birth in Lynchburg was not my only birth. My second birth occurred in June of 1971, and of all places, Severance Hall in Cleveland. That was the day I watched my sister walk across the stage and get her graduate degree in physical therapy as the first person in our family to graduate college and graduate school. And I watched tears of joy, tears of gratitude, tears of hope silently stream down the face of my tough mother, that she recognized that one journey was over, yet another journey was beginning for my sister and for my family. The oldest is always that person that leads the way in the family. We've been coming to Cleveland over the 6 years, from 1965 to 1971, in our Oldsmobile, through all the things like the riots, through the river catching on fire. And I thought Cleveland was fire, if I can use that term. You know, for a country boy coming from Lynchburg, Virginia, you know, there were these wide avenues, there were these fancy cars, there was the Lagoon and Waite Circle, there were museums, and there were some cool Black people, including my sister's Afro-wearing, dashiki-clad Black nationalist boyfriend, Gary. And we could say Black. We couldn't say Black in Lynchburg, it was Negro, but I could call these people Black people. And the other person I got a big kick out of was my sister's little sister, this woman, this girl with the big teeth and the big smile. Her name was Stephanie. Stephanie Tubbs was her name. And she was just a riot and a lot to live with. And so Cleveland was all that for me. But it would be more than 35 years before I came back to Cleveland. But I had the imprint indelibly etched in my mind that this was a city of hope. This was a city of happening. And this was in many ways hallowed ground for a young boy trying to figure out, a young Black boy, Negro boy, trying to figure out where he was going to go. The end of January, and in fact, Friday, January 29th, 2021, is a very significant time in the Barksdale family. And there's always special celebration in my mind. It's a day of remembrance. It's a day of celebration. And this past year, this weekend, it marked the 59th anniversary of an important event in our family. My sister Linda, who graduated here at age 14, along with another boy, and my parents, stepped out of my parents' car and stepped into history in Lynchburg, Virginia, as the first two Negroes to integrate the Lynchburg public school system. It was only the second case in the history of Virginia, and it was only 7.5 years after the landmark Little Rock case. You know, the one that broke separate versus equal and the paintings of the little girl going in the school. Well, that was us. And in fact, my mother, who was a seamstress in a sock factory, my father, who was a glorified postman, had really stood up to the establishment and had stood up to this young Baptist minister in my hometown who said that my parents should never expect that their children, that their family should be anything more than they were. A seamstress and a postal worker. This man, this minister, was only a minister in a very small church at the time. Now that church is the largest non-Catholic church in the world. And that man, Jerry Falwell, came to rise as a resistance to the efforts that our parents led. You know, there's a saying in the South that I think those of you in Cleveland who have Southern roots know, you just got to keep on keeping on. It was a tough 6 months for my sister. And there was another man who came to our hometown, to my home, to another home, to meet with my sister and a core group of people, core group of young Black people who were integrating the schools. And my mother was all in a dither. She was excited to see him. This man, this preacher, was going to teach them about the 6 principles of nonviolence. And the person who had helped lead the suit was a Black dentist. We went to his house. The man was staying there. And when we got to this house, there was this man who looked to me like every other short Black preacher in the South, neat, talking with his hands like I am now, kind of this melodic voice. He was sitting on the hearth. And what struck me about that man was that there was no halo, there was no aura, and there were no wings. He was just an ordinary Black preacher with a little bit of a vibrato in his voice. He was an ordinary man. Several years later, I would learn that this ordinary man, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, had indomitable will. And although I didn't realize the significance as a 4.5-year-old at who I was meeting, this concept that one individual can see a problem, can go deep and change the world is where I think we stand now. We stand on the verge of that ability of a community to change our course. And we do that, in my opinion, by changing the health and healthcare for our people and our children. So I tell this story about my birth, about the Jim Crow South, and about all these things to put in perspective that along your themes of equity and equality, that equity and equality had been in my blood since I was a child. And in fact, I believe they were woven in my DNA by both my parents. And so in my very short comments related to the topic, I want to say about health that we need to change how we look at health in this community. The World Health Organization, almost 70 years ago, said that health is a state of complete mental, social, and physical well-being, not merely the absence of infirmity. Again, not merely the absence of infirmity. When I'm in my office and I see my patients' parents, I ask them if they have any health problems. They say, "No, I'm good, doc, I'm good." Well, they're on high blood pressure and things like that. And I believe that you can have high blood pressure and you can be healthy or well. But a lot of my concept of wellness has to do with wholeness. When I got to Cleveland 13 years ago, and Director Stevenson, we've known each other for 12 years. The time goes by quickly. When I got here 13 years ago, the Cleveland that I found was not the Cleveland that I met in the late 1960s. I was excited. That was an understatement. I was ecstatic. I was coming full circle to the place of my second birth. And I was thrilled that nearly a lifelong dream had been fulfilled, that there was an opportunity to fulfill my most important lifelong aspiration. And that was not just to be successful, but to move from success to significance. You talk about a mama crying. My mama cried when I got this job here in Cleveland because, as she said, and I hope this isn't offensive to anyone, but as she said, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus." And that was something I often heard as a child when my mother, my family was going through tough problems, this sense of gratitude and this sense of hope that no matter how bad things were, that there was a sense of hope. Well, that sense of hope is what got me from then to now, because the Cleveland I saw, as I mentioned, was one that was filled with tons of problems. The #1 infant mortality rate in the country, the highest child poverty rate in the country, one of the highest youth violence rates in the country, high maternal mortality. All these things that you might look at and say, why be here? I saw those things and said, why not be here? This is the place where not only there are problems to be fixed, but more importantly, there were people like Director Stevenson, the mayor, the chief of police, and a number of people who helped me go deep in the city, who I realized were committed to move the Cleveland to a place not to where it was in the 60s or 40s or 50s or before, but to make this a city that had never existed here before. When I looked in my office, when I saw patients in my office, what I noticed was the same thing I noticed working with Director Stevenson with our young children who had experienced violence. I realized that although they had straightforward medical and surgical problems, that what they suffered mostly from were toxins. Now, when you think of toxins, you think of lead poison, and they were suffering from the toxin of lead poison. But the greatest toxin that I kept seeing my patients and their families suffer from was the toxin of hopelessness and despair. And when I took a chance to take my shirt and tie off, to go to the rec centers, the juvenile detention center, to the churches, to the street corners, I met some tough kids and I met some tough people who had gone through things that I understood, but that I had not gone through myself. I also found the depths of poverty and the stress that poverty created to divide families and to destroy the strength of a city. And I began at that time to make my commitment to try to restore the strength of families as the first step toward improving health of our residents and our communities. I also wanted to eliminate the toxins. And although I would like to have gotten help to get rid of lead poisoning, the toxin that I find so devastating here is the toxin of despair. And I wanted us to reinvest in our infrastructure and build foundations of hope to eliminate that despair. So it's been an incredible journey over the years, this opportunity to go deep into the community, to work hand to hand, elbow to elbow, with people who I have grown richly from in understanding the needs of this community and the needs of this society. I've seen health disparities, the health disparities that exist between places like Buckeye, Woodhill, University Circle, where the life expectancy is 65 years, was just a couple miles away in Shaker Heights. It's 88 years. These are things that we have to address, and that we address them by improving and strengthening our families, and the families become the foundation for the community. In my family growing up, there were 4 core values. The first value was spirituality, a sense of purpose, not just religion, but a sense of purpose and a sense of hope. The belief that tomorrow will always be the potential to be a better day, that we believe. The second of those core values was the value of family. And that value of family meant more than my immediate or extended family. It meant my community. And we would often smile, my sister and I, it seemed like we had more aunties and uncles that weren't even related to us. There was Aunt Estelle, Aunt Mabel, Aunt Hink, Uncle Joe. These people weren't anywhere near being relatives to our family, but they were a part of our tribe. And what a tribe is, or what a community is, or what my grandmother would call not community, but common unity. Common unity is that those people who you can be for and they can be for you. The third value of the Barksdale House was one of excellence. And this isn't about all achievement excellence. My grandmother, my mother, wanted me to do well in school. They wanted me to learn how to speak well, how to dress well. Comportment was a big thing. Rhetoric and writing were big. But they wanted moral excellence. And that was something they said would have to be cultivated with discipline over the course of life. And the last value, is the last value that I try to live daily is the one of social justice. And that is identifying those things that I have agency or control over. So as I close my comments, I know I've already overspoken, but as I close my comments, I'd like to tell you the 5 things I think that we can do to strengthen Black families. And we can do this, and we must do this in partnership. The first of those is that we must develop stronger public-private partnerships with corporations, hospitals, philanthropic, and civic organizations to grow skills and build wealth within the urban community. To grow skills and build wealth within the urban community. Somehow this concept of building wealth seems to be perverse to some people, but wealth leads to health. That's the first goal. The second, for me, is that we have to acknowledge that great healthcare and great health are not one and the same. Look, we've got some of the best hospitals in the United States, if not the best hospitals in the world. But when we throw a rock outside these hospitals into the adjacent communities, the health of the people is at third world standards. And this discrepancy has to be addressed. We have to change the way we look at health and healthcare. And so healthcare, the second point is that healthcare begins in the hospital or doctor's office, but health begins in the community. And so we need to strengthen our families, bring health into the community. The third is that we need to create a new sense of community that is built on shared aspirations and shared values. You know, I told you already, right? Not community, but common unity. That was my grandmother's motto. The fourth thing I was going to take out of this talk, but I have gotten grayer and I've gotten bolder. And the pandemic has really put me on the verge of this, that I have to be bold. We have to be bold. Equality and equity are only way stations on the destination to justice. We have to address racism, systemic racism, as a means of getting to justice. All right? Not just equality and equity, but justice. And what I realized going into Huff and other neighborhoods in Cleveland where the people are rich, they are like me. But what I realize is that the opposite of justice is not necessarily injustice. The opposite of justice is, as Brian Stevenson says, the opposite of justice is poverty. And we've got to be bold in addressing poverty by addressing systemic racism. And finally, a term that I've fallen in love with and developed a program around is anti-fragility. And anti-fragility is the concept that when things are broken, they can actually be stronger and better after being broken. So when we walk through these neighborhoods that we think are broken and that the children will never be recovered, we have to look at them and look at ourselves in a different way. The anti-fragility, in my opinion, is that things become stronger in the broken places. I was broken in Lynchburg, Virginia, by racism, by a number of things, but I had a supporting family and a supporting environment that allowed me to become stronger in those broken places. And so I end this by saying we must be purveyors of hope. So, you know, I'm looking at Ms. Shockley, and she's giving me that look. She said, Doc, I didn't come for a sermon. This ain't Sunday. This is Monday afternoon. But, you know, when I look out my office and walk out into the city of Cleveland, I see a rich city. I see the city of my second birth. And so as I close today, I have to say thank you for this recognition. Um, I hope my mother's okay with me accepting any recognition related to what she told me to do, even if I don't deserve it. I'd also like to thank my family, my wife and kids, whose shoulders I cry on. I'd like to thank my native Lynchburg community that I grew up in for the shoulders I've been able to stand on. I'd like to thank my coworkers, the leadership of UH and Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital for their shoulders I lean on. But I'd like to thank you and the city of Cleveland for the ground I stand on and the people I stand for. I thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to continuing to work with all of you, to work with those people on Facebook to help make this the city where all the people are cool, not just the dashiki, afro-wearing, big smile people, that we make this entire city a place that we want to be. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Director Stevenson, would you like to do the honors of a presentation virtually to Dr. Barksdale on behalf of the Black History Month Committee?
Oh, it'd be my pleasure. Doc, great talk. Thank you so much. We needed to hear every word of what you brought today. And Shelley will tell you quite often, I take up the time to preach to her, whether it's Sunday or Monday through Friday. I take my time to sometimes draw a text and preach to her. So don't worry, you're in good company. You're good. It is my pleasure, Dr. Barksdale, to present you with, hold on, I'll grab it. They brought me a box. They brought me a box and said, have this ready. And of course, we had all the stuff going on today, so I didn't. But we do have a plaque here with your name on it. And I am so grateful that Mr. Shockley brought them all in. Here we go. The City of Cleveland 2021 Black History Month Committee, strengthening Black families through the quest of equity and equality, would like to honor Dr. Edward M. Barksdale Jr. for your continued leadership and tenacity, February 2021. Thank you so much, Doc. I love you, bruh. Great talk.
I love you as well.
So glad you could be with us today.
Yes, thank you so very much.
All right, and we'll get this to you as soon as possible.
Okay.
All right, Shelley, in your hands.
All righty. So I hope that you all have enjoyed this presentation where Dr. Barksdale has given us all something to think about. We all know how important health is. We say that we understand it, but oftentimes we don't practice it. I think that if we were listening closely, there are many things that we as individuals can do to help bring and continue our city to moving forward. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation from our committee and will continue to join us throughout the month. Coming up next, this Saturday, we will have the flag raising ceremony that will be taking place on the steps of City Hall. It begins at 11:30. But there will be no formal program as we have had in the past. But again, we are all pivoting how we do things in order to keep everyone safe. And again, next week we will have another presentation on community outreach on February the 10th. We will have as our guest Honey Bell Bay. She has been doing some great things in the community in a number of areas, and we will talk about that on February the 10th. So, as our mayor is frequently telling you, we want you all to stay safe. We want you to continue to practice safe social distancing. We want you to wash your hands and wear your mask. And join us throughout the month as we celebrate Black History Month in the city of Cleveland. Not just the past, but the present and the future of our thriving, growing community. Thank you again for watching and have a great day. Again, thank you, Dr. Barksdale and Director Stevenson.
Thank you very much to everyone.